Is Royal Caribbean's VIP key program worth it in 2025?
No.
Yes. No.
Yes.
Let's find out right now. So is it worth it? Well, if you look on YouTube or the internet, you're going to get two sides of the key coin. Half the people think it's a waste of money, and a pretty large group think it's definitely worth it. The problem is most of these videos or articles focus on the person that's recording it or writing it. In other words, is it worth it for that person? And in this video, we're going to figure out if it's worth it for you. And we're going to do that by looking at some spreadsheets. And we're also going to look at a calculator that I'll give you a link to that you can put in your cruise information, and it will tell you if it's worth it for you. Instead of me telling you if it's worth it for me, we'll figure out if it's worth it for you. So this video is going to be broken into two parts. The first part, I'm going to go over what you get with the key. So if you already know that, just follow the chapter and skip ahead. If not, I'll go over everything that's included with the key, show you some videos of that. And then after that, well, as I said, we'll look at some numbers overall, and then we'll actually look at the calculator, and I'll tell you how Kat and I figure out if it's worth it for us, because we don't always get it. There's only certain cruise lengths and certain classes of ships that we get the key for. So let's dive in, see what it says. All right, so let's take a look at the benefits of the key. And there's quite a few of them. To start with, we get priority access during the key designated arrival time. All right, so what does that mean? I'm going to actually read for each of these what Royal Caribbean says and then put it into English and explain what it really is. So basically what that means is if you've never been on a Royal Caribbean cruise before, when you are approaching the cruise, you actually check in like you would on an airplane. And when you do that, you get assigned an arrival time that you're going to get on the ship. And the further out you do that, the better it's going to be, because you'll get an earlier time. What the key does is it allows you to come first. It allows you to get on the ship pretty much second after all the suite guests get on. And they will send you an email like a week before you get on the cruise ship, and it will tell you when you can arrive. You still have to do the check-in and all that. However, it will give you an early arrival time that's going to be before everyone else. So what happens is you go into the terminal, and there will be a designated seating area just for the key people. And then when the ship is ready, as I said, they'll let the suite guests on, and then they'll let the key people go on. All right, the next is drop off your carry-on luggage. So with the key, you will be having lunch, a Chops lunch in the main dining room. And the entrance to that, there will be people standing there, and you can give them your carry-on luggage and, tell them you're part of the key, and they will put tags on it, and they will actually take it and put it in your cabin. So when your cabin is available, when you open your door, your carry-ons will already be inside. The next thing is the exclusive welcome lunch featuring the Chops Grill menu. It is not the Chops Grill menu. It is a selected Chops Grill menu. So in other words, there's a few appetizers, there's a few main courses, there's a couple desserts. It's definitely not the full menu. However, the good news is they have filet mignon, which is what, if you're going to Chops, you should get. They do have like shrimp cocktail for the appetizer, but they also have vegetarian or non-fish or meat items on the menu as well. The next one up is the private hours for the ship activities. So depending on the ship you're on, for example, the Royal Caribbean ships have rock climbing walls. It's their thing. And which means you will have private hours for the key participants to go rock climbing, and no one else can do it in that time period, just the key. So obviously, the bigger the ship and the more activities they have, the better this benefit. So for example, on an Oasis class ship, you can do rock climbing, you can do ice skating, you can do the zip line, you can do the ultimate abyss slide, and I believe there's, depending on the ship, there's hours for the flow rider as well. That's a lot of activities that you can basically go and not have to wait for. Typically, when I go ice skating during the key time, it's just Kat and I, or it's just me, maybe one or two other people, and that's it. Okay, the next one is the 20% off all specialty restaurants day one. In my opinion, this is worthless. A couple of reasons why. If you book your specialty dining ahead of time, restaurant by restaurant, so in other words, if you don't have a dining package, you can typically get 20% or more off if you just wait for sales to come up. The other thing is, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, if you look around, like on the bigger ships, on the Royal Promenade, and you see a waiter or waitress walking around with a menu, they are specialty dining restaurants, waiters or waitresses. And what they're doing is they're not sold out, and they're trying to find people to make reservations for the restaurant. And you'll get an even bigger discount if you talk to one of them. Next one is free internet. So with each key person, you get one free internet device. So for example, when Kat and I go on a cruise, we each get the internet. If I go on the cruise by myself, I get the internet. And it's for one device. And what that means is you can only have one device logged in at a time per person that has this. So when I travel, I obviously have my phone and my computer. You can alternate back and forth. You just log out of one, log into the other one, and you're good to go. That is an outstanding benefit, and in a lot of cases, it comes pretty close to being a good portion of the cost for the key. The next one is reserved seating at shows, and this is just like the ship's activities, because if you're on a ship with only one show, or one theater, I should say, then you're basically only getting that benefit for one theater. If you're on a ship, again, like an Oasis class ship, this works at the ice skating show, at the water show and the aqua theater, and in the main theater. So basically at 3 shows. And the seating is very nice. The next one is priority departure at tender ports of call. So there are some ports where there is no pier for the ships to come up alongside. And what that means is you will be taking tenders, which are basically the lifeboats, from the cruise ship to the ports. And that can be very time consuming. There can be very, very long lines to get on the tenders. And if you have the key, there is a tender that's for the key people, and you'll get right on it and you'll get off the ship pretty much immediately. However, that is only to go from the cruise ship to the port. That does not cover coming from the port back to the cruise ship. So when you come from the port back, you're going to be waiting in a line for everyone else. And just keep in mind, very, very few ports that Royal Caribbean go to are tendered ports. And last but not least is the end of cruise with an a la carte breakfast. There is a breakfast that you can go have. Kat and I have done this once just to get footage for it. Typically, we just wake up, we grab some coffee, get our luggage, and walk off the ship. However, if you want one last meal, there is a meal that's provided. But anyway, let's take a look at the numbers. All right, as the title states, this is for 2025. And what I did is on the screen here, you will see the 6 cruises that Kat and I are going on in 2025. So we're going on Navigator, which is a 7-day cruise, Icon, which is another 7-day, Utopia, which is a 4-day, Brilliance, which is a 7-day, and that's a Greek Isle cruise. And then Brilliance again, which is a repositioning transatlantic cruise through Greenland and Iceland, and that is 15 days. And then Rhapsody is out of Puerto Rico, and that is 7 days. What's nice about this year is we have everything from smaller ships to Oasis class ships and an Icon class ship. We have the whole spectrum. And what I did is on the top here, the blue bars represent how much the key costs per day, and the green bar represents how much the internet costs per day. You can see that on the smaller ships, the internet is a substantial portion of the price of the key. On the larger ships, Utopia is an Oasis class ship. Icon is obviously an Icon class ship. It's a little bit smaller and relative to the cost of the key per day. And down in the bottom in this table I have it laid out by the cost of the key per day, the cost of the internet per day, the difference. So in other words, what's left over after you take out the internet. Now, just to be clear, if you're not going to get the internet, so if you didn't have the key and you had no intention of getting the internet, the key is 100% not worth it for anyone, unless you really want to spend a lot of money to not wait in a couple lines. The only way the key makes sense is if you would be paying for the internet no matter what. Anyway, you can see the next column is the difference. This is what's left over between the key minus the internet per day. On Navigator, there's a $15 difference. If you wanted to get the key, it's basically costing you $15 a day. The total cost for the cruise for Navigator would be $105. And if you look down, you can see Brilliance is $105, and so is Rhapsody. Those are the smaller ships. The Brilliance, that's $225. That's because it's a long cruise, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then the larger ships like Utopia and Icon, you can see Icon is $196 extra for the cruise if you take the internet out. That's how much it's costing total. And then finally, the last column, it takes out the cost of the CHOPS lunch. I went through all the ships, looked at how much the lunch for CHOPS would cost, and I took it out. Now you're looking at the total cost for the key minus the stuff that you would already have purchased is $78.01 for Navigator, $166 for Icon, $82 for Utopia, and so on. So that's not bad. What you have to do is look at that amount and say, okay, the other benefits, do they equal that amount, or are they worth more than that amount? And if they are, then you should get the key. So let's take a look at those benefits. All right, here is a table with the benefits and how much Kat and I think that benefit is worth. For example, getting on the ship early, the priority embarkation, that is worth it for us for $20 each. In other words, for me, $20, for her, $20. But we're looking at this per individual, so that's why it just says $20. For me, to drop off my carry-on luggage is worth $20. I typically have 3 carry-on, maybe 4, so that's $5 a bag, roughly $20. The fast lane, each fast lane is worth to me $10, so I can ice skate by myself. And if you're on an Oasis class ship, there's 4 things, which makes that a total of $40. I have never been on a Royal Caribbean ship that has tendered before. And the funny thing is, actually, one of the cruises that's in this list, the Greek Isle one, does have a tender port. So for that, I'd have to enter it in. But I can already tell you that I won't be getting the key on that cruise. So it's $0. Reserve seating for shows, that's definitely worth $10 per show for a total of $30. And as I said, Kat and I do not get the a la carte breakfast. That's a total of $110, in our opinion, that the benefits are worth. All you do is you compare that to the values before and see whether or not it's worth it. For example, on Navigator of the Sea, it was $78 was what was left over for the cost. If the Navigator of the Sea was actually an Oasis class ship, which it isn't, then this would apply, and 110 is more than the 78, so it would be worth it. All right, there's one other thing we need to take a look at, and that's this. It's cruise length. If you look at this, the key, what I did is I listed the key, the internet, and chops out. These are the average amount the key costs per day on all those 5 cruises. The average amount the internet costs per day, which is $28.66, and the average amount chops lunch costs. And as you can see, the longer the cruise, so under the word average, the 4 to the 12, that is the number of days for the cruise. And as you can see, the longer the cruise is, the more expensive the key becomes, the more expensive the VOOM becomes, and the final chops column, that shows you the total amount that's left over after you take the internet and chops out of the key. For example, a 7-day cruise on average is going to cost $107.32 after you take the internet and chops out of the key program. And as you saw before, it's worth it to Kat and I, $110 for the extras. If we book this, we would save $3.32. No, $3. Yeah, basically $3. What does this all mean in the bigger picture on average? And then I'll show you how to use the calculator. The larger the ship, the more worth it is. And the shorter the cruise, for the most part, the more worth it is. For Kat and I, if the cruise is longer than 7 days, we don't get it. Because as you can see, 8 days is $126 on average. If it's more than 7 days, we don't get the key. Also, if it's not on an Oasis class ship, a Quantum class ship, an Icon class ship, we don't get it either, because there aren't as many ship activities and there aren't as many theaters for the shows. All right, so let me show you the actual calculator, and I'll put a link to this up on the screen so that you can go and plug your own information in. Okay, let's take a look at the Royal Caribbean Key calculator. And I will put the URL in the description, and I'll put it up on the screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this for the Utopia of the Seas cruise that Kat and I are going on, and see if it makes sense to get the key. Some of these values, these 3 on the top, are already filled in. Most Royal Caribbean cruises are 7 days, so the default is 7. And these are the average prices for the key and the internet. So if you don't want to actually look those up and you just want to put in what you value the different perks, then you can do that. But I actually have all my values here. The cruise is 4 days, and the key cost is $59.99. So you just go down and enter this stuff in. The VOOM is $31.99, and let's see here. The value of embarkation for us, as I mentioned, is $20. The carry-on value for us is $20. The fast lane, the value of each fast lane is $10, and there are 4 attractions that I'm going to go on Utopia. The value of the tender, none of the ports we're going to are tendered, so that's 0. The value of reserved seating is 10, and there are 3 of those. And as I said, Kat and I do not go to the a la carte breakfast. So you scroll down, you click calculate, and the key is worth it for us. We're going to save $25.99. So the total cost of the key is right here, total cost of the internet. And these are the values I entered in. And the chops is the average value for the chops that's in the calculator. So we ended up saving $25.99. And we get all these benefits for it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, we do other Is It Worth It videos every year. So once a year, we put out a series of these videos covering everything from the key, which we just did, to the two major drink packages, the dining package, and we ask the question, is it worth it? But we don't answer it based on us. We do, just like we did with this video, we answer it for you. So why not subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of those videos? And if you liked this video, why not watch one of our Let's Cruise videos and actually go on a cruise with us so that you know what to expect before you go on the same cruise we did. See you next time.